Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner and today is March 1st, 2019. You can always get our forecast by going to weather.gov/Alaska and click on the area of your choice, or you can always use our 1-800 number by dialing 1-800-472-0391. Now in just a moment we're going to talk about your public aviation and marine forecasts, and we're going to start off the show today with something a little bit different, as we're not going to see any advisories and watches or warnings out there today. So I wanted to give a mention with skies being clear across the eastern areas of the state through the southeast, except for with the exception of the west coast, we're going to be seeing the possibilities for a good aurora to develop across most of the state tonight. So be on the lookout, especially if you're in the overnight hours. We'll have that possibility to see the aurora develop. Now, looking at another focus for the dryness that we've experienced across the southeastern areas of this state, let me just step off the screen here a minute so you can see most of this graphic. This is out of the Juneau Forecast Office. Now, the drought concerns are continuing to grow across this area of the state. Now, here's the drought intensity map with the highest intensity over the southern areas of the state there. We will see this dryness continue through the next week, and we're going to see those chilly nights and warm days. So the drought problems in the southeast are going to continue as there's no rain coming anytime soon. So here's that area across the east. You can see a large area of clearing through the eastern areas of the state with a frontal boundary that's stretched just south of the Alaska Peninsula all the way towards the northwest coast. Now this was brought by a low pressure system that lifted north over the Kamchatka area yesterday, and a cold front or cold air mass behind the system is pushing across the central areas of the Bering. Now let me step off here so you can see out across the Alaska Peninsula and west, the areas in the speckled pattern, the darker gray colors are indicative of the colder air mass that's coming across. If I put this into motion, you can see that is also being followed by a very warm system with these bright colors. This is a front that's going to be pushing into the western Aleutians. This low pressure system is quite a strong system, well stacked, and we're going to look at the surface maps in just a moment. But we do have a ridge of high pressure that's also just south of the eastern Aleutians here, separating this system that's diminishing across the west coast and that approaching storm to the west. Now let's take a look at this one more time. You can see a little bit of a disturbance here in the map, and that's going to give an additional push to those west coastal areas to see that ongoing snow later. Now here's the front. It's kind of stretched across the west coast with those warmer conditions bring some light rain across mainly the Alaska Peninsula, and Bristol Bay is seeing a mix of rain and snow, mostly rain during the afternoon hours. And towards the north we had some gustier conditions, but snow is kind of light across the Seward Peninsula, so just maybe one inch of snow through the evening hours at this point is expected. Now for the colder air mass out over the Bering, we are going to continue to see some snow showers with that frontal approach, bring some gusty southeasterly flow to the western Aleutians. We're also seeing some windy conditions across the Tanana Flats, mainly due to the pressure gradient squeeze with a ridge out towards the east. It's bringing a bit of a squeeze from the southeast locations to the central areas of the state. So expect some winds to be increasing out of the north across Skagway, and possibly through the overnight hours we're going to see those winds reaching between 30 to 45 miles per hour for these locations. Now let's take a look at tomorrow or tonight. We'll see that wind with the gradient continuing to be squeezed there across the southeast and up across the Tanana Flats locations. However, we do have that large area of ridge over the Gulf, which is going to help the fog development once again across the Cook Inlet locations. Possibility with this stalled boundary across the west coast that we'll see some fog overnight across the southwest and the west coast locations. However, for the eastern areas of the state, staying on the dry and clear side for the most part, under just very quiet conditions. Now, the unsettled pattern is going to continue there across the Bering. We're going to see the storm system deepen very rapidly as we head into Saturday. That frontal boundary is going to make a quick progress. So snow will be possible across the Aleutian chain, but mainly rain as this front pulls through to the north through the day on Saturday. Look for this frontal boundary to bring some very gusty wind conditions between 50 to 70 miles per hour, especially across a chain when the boundary comes across. We'll see a change of wind direction as this low pulls to the north. They will switch from the south-southeast to the west direction as that low moves to the north. Now, across the eastern areas of the Bering, fairly quiet conditions for Saturday with the frontal boundary pulling towards the interior. So some light snow showers are going to be possible, mainly late in the day approaching the western interior here down through the Alaska Peninsula. We'll see some ongoing light precipitation with this front diminishing. However, we're not expecting any accumulations at this point. Now, for your Saturday, we're going to see those winds continuing across the southeast mainly between 30 to 45 miles per hour. Right now, we're not looking for strong winds to be an issue down into Juneau, but that is something to watch out for as ridge across the eastern areas or western areas of Canada continues to have some pressure gradient increases along the southeast. And that's going to continue into Sunday, the ridge pattern. So dry conditions for the state through the weekend. It's going to be a fairly nice weekend with some possible shower activity, upper wave remnant moisture across the western Alaska range there. So be on the lookout for dry conditions. However, the west coast will be getting back into that unsettled pattern again as that front approaches the eastern areas of the Bering. Low pressure will be lifting north of Shimia with a fairly strong gradient across all the Bering. We'll see some gusty winds in these locations with rain mainly across the southeastern areas of the Bering. Now let's take a look at your temperatures. Temperatures today were coldest across Northway down to 19 degrees below zero. Similar pattern across the eastern areas of the state being the coldest between 0 to 15 degrees below zero. On the north coast, look for single digits and slow increase into the mid-20s across the western areas of the state. We're looking at temperatures in the mid-30s for the Alaska Peninsula and out towards the west, moderating into the low to mid-30s. Now, for the southeast locations, look at temperatures. Cold again tonight with clear skies. We'll see between 20 to 32 degrees for most of the areas. And then across the coastal locations, that's going to be the general trend, maybe a little bit cooler into the lower 20s, single digits across the interior. Now, temperatures on Saturday are going to be warm once again, very warm across the southwest, reaching into the upper 30s. Today we saw temperatures for the southeast into the upper 40s, so they're expected to at least be near 40 degrees for your day on Saturday. Across the northern tier of the state, still warm for this time of the year, in the teens and into the lower 20s across the Seward Peninsula. For the western areas of the state, look at temperatures mainly near 30 degrees or just above. This warm core system is going to bring warmer temperatures across all of the Aleutian chain, so temperatures will be in the mid-30s to near 40 degrees there. Now, as we head into Sunday morning, look for temperatures to be moderating back to in the mid-30s again for the Aleutian chain, and we'll see 20s across the western tier of the state, except north of the Seward Peninsula. They'll be below freezing in the teens, with the north coast mainly seeing temperatures in the single digits. Now, like I said, those cold nights are going to continue. So Arctic Valley up there is going to be dropping down into colder temperatures, probably the Northway for your Sunday morning, slightly cooler there. And then temperatures towards the coast will be in the teens to mid-20s, with temperatures kind of relatively the same across most of the Gulf, but notice how on Sunday morning they're going to be slightly cooler across the southeast in the possibly in the upper teens actually. Now for temperatures, they'll be pretty warm once again, climbing up into the mid 30s to around 40 degrees with very similar temperatures again across the state for high temperature ranges. We're not going to see much change as the ridge continues with low pressure out towards the western areas of the Bering.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Now moving on to flying weather for this upcoming weekend. On Saturday morning, you can see that there's widespread areas of MVFR and IFR in the orange colors here across the west coast. And that's how we're going to start off this Saturday with low ceilings also across much of the Gulf waters, and just south of the Alaska Peninsula we'll see some IFR there. And then we have an approaching front to the west. We'll see IFR widespread across the western Aleutian chain, and here's that stretch of MVFR just sneaking into parts of the southeast for the morning hours. Now as we head into the afternoon, that low deck across the Gulf is going to stay intact, and then across the west coast we'll see a little bit more of a spread of those MVFR conditions further inland, and we'll also see some IFR conditions creeping into the western areas of the Brooks Range. Look out for IFR conditions continuing across the western chain and also creeping into the central Aleutians there. Now let's take a look at the flying weather for Sunday morning. We'll have this front, very strong, powerful system bring IFR ceilings widespread across much of the Gulf waters and also MVFR conditions. For the west coast and interior, look for MVFR conditions spreading inland, low stratus, and then IFR conditions there for the Kuskokwim Delta south through Bristol Bay. For the Gulf, we'll see once again that widespread MVFR conditions as that low deck remains under a ridge of high pressure just to the south and to the east. Let's take a look at the afternoon. No improvement here for the Gulf waters, but we will see improvement across much of the state. So the afternoon should give way to clearer skies for Sunday. For the west coast, however, still staying in that MVFR category with IFR conditions moving in across the eastern Bering waters and down through the eastern areas of the Aleutians. On the backside of this system, we will keep MVFR and IFR conditions with low pressure moving north. Now let's go into your passes in more depth. We have Anatuvik for tomorrow. They'll see VFR conditions as well as Adigan Pass. And Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, they should start out MVFR, but they might be briefly VFR during the morning. For Rainy Pass, expect VFR going to MVFR, except for the west entrance. They should start the day off MVFR. For Windy Pass, they should see one more day of VFR conditions, and Isabel Pass will also be in that VFR category for Saturday. Mentasta will be VFR, and we'll see Tanita at VFR. For Portage, expect VFR, and then we'll see Chilkoot and White Pass, another VFR day for you. Now for your freezing levels on Saturday morning, looking at the surface freezing level draped across the coastal areas of the Gulf, and then a little bit further north of just around the Pribilof Islands back towards the western areas of the Bering, with a little bit more height rises south there of the Aleutian chain, 2,000 to 6,000 feet, as we have a warmer air mass moving in, and we also have a 2,000 foot level increase across Kodiak and just along the northeastern Beaufort seacoast. Now for your icing tomorrow, mainly along the diminishing front across much of the western parts of the state and along the Gulf. However, that's going to be below 4,000 feet across the Gulf waters and above 4,000 feet across the western and central areas of the Bering. Now, looking at the overall jet stream flow, we still are going to be in an amplified pattern with ridging dominant across the eastern areas of the state. Now, the disconnect tomorrow, today we started off with like a split flow pattern, but tomorrow this ridge is going to be shifting towards the east, and this low pressure system becomes dominant south of the Alaska Peninsula with a low pressure just to the west of this. Now, at 9,000 foot on Saturday, we will see low pressure out towards the west. This is going to be a very stacked system with strong winds, powerful between 55 to 70 knots around the low pressure system. Now, across the central areas of the state, southerly flow between 15 to 30 knots, so not too bad there. Change of wind directions there across the eastern areas of the state, maybe more of an outflow pattern across Kodiak and towards the Kenai there. And then really weak wind speeds for your Saturday across much of the Gulf and southeast. At 3,000 foot, you're going to see the same reflection on the winds across the Gulf and southeast. The southerly flow across the state with the most powerful winds with the stack system between 50 to 70 knots to the west. Now, just summing up your turbulence, your concerns are going to be out across the western areas of the Bering for tomorrow below 6,000 feet.
Just as the sun is part of weather on Earth, it also affects weather in space. The sun creates solar wind by steadily releasing a flow of plasma particles in all directions around it. Sometimes the sun gives off a flash of light and X-rays. This is known as a solar flare. When massive bursts of particles explode into space, we call it a coronal mass ejection, or CME. When a CME is directed toward Earth, it hits the magnetosphere, the magnetic field around our planet that protects us. If the storm is large, we may even get to enjoy a light display in the sky called the auroras. In space, satellites may be damaged, and astronauts should take cover. On Earth, people do not feel any physical effects. We may lose electricity in some areas, polar flights may be rerouted, and satellite services may be disrupted. While these situations aren't ideal, they are rare and fixable. This is why we will continue to study the sun and its interactions with Earth and the solar system.
Longing for more space, open skies, and exotic travel? Then look up, about 30 to 600 miles straight up at the ionosphere, Earth's interface to space. Nestled far above the clouds but below outer space, this little understood destination invites you to explore its many features. Experience both the weather from Earth and the weather from space. Marvel at the ballet of radio waves and navigation signals, like GPS, leaping through this particle paradise. Sit back, relax, and take in the aurora, some satellites, and the International Space Station as they sail by. And you'll want your camera handy for one of the region's signature features, bright and colorful air glow. This daily show is made possible by the ionosphere's own swirling charged particles, because that's what the ionosphere is. It's all charged particles. During the day, enjoy the sea of particles, freshly energized by the sun. As the sun sets, this particle party relaxes and the air glow thins. Our quieter nightlife lets you gaze into clearer skies. The ionosphere is in constant motion, an amazing effect of space weather. Don't miss when solar storms rain down. The storm separates the particles even more, making this colorful region delightfully more dense in some places and stunningly sparse in others. And don't forget about storms from Earth below. Your weather from back home also stirs up this one-of-a-kind destination. Experience the unique beauty of every season, as changes in Earth's atmosphere, daily and annually, can create pressure waves, changing the ionosphere's shape and density. Venture to the equator, where our particles are packed in lush and thick. Cruise along a magnetic field line and see how the ionosphere's charged material also interacts with Earth's own magnetic field. Don't miss the superhighway of particles zipping out to space and back down to the planet. This unpredictable parade of charged particles can help you unplug and unwind. This is because the crowd of particles can garble the radio and satellite communications from home. The ionosphere welcomes you to discover more about this little-known region. After all, once you've explored this interface to space, who knows how much farther you'll be able to go.
When a star, bigger and more massive than the Sun, runs out of fuel at the end of its life, its core collapses while the outer layers are blown off in a supernova explosion. What's left behind depends on the star's original mass. A star roughly 10 to 20 times our Sun leaves behind a neutron star. A more massive star becomes a black hole. Unlike black holes, neutron stars are directly observable, usually as pulsars, the lighthouses of the cosmos. Discovered 50 years ago, they are the densest observable objects in the universe. Neutron stars compress up to twice the Sun's mass into a city-sized sphere. Matter is packed so tightly that a teaspoon of neutron star interior would weigh more than 1 billion tons on Earth. Still, the nature of the ultra-dense matter in the cores of neutron stars is unknown. Because neutron stars pack so much mass into such a tiny volume, they produce gravity strong enough to bend the light they emit, distorting their appearance in a way that enables the mass and size of the star to be measured. Scientists cannot reproduce the extreme conditions in and around neutron stars on Earth. They must look into the galaxy to answer decades-old questions about extreme matter and gravity. NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer mission, or NISA, will make X-ray observations of neutron stars from its perch on the International Space Station. It will give astronomers more insight into these mysterious objects, helping determine what is under their surface. A multi-purpose mission, NISA includes a technology demonstration called Sextant. It will analyze NISA's observations to validate the use of rapidly rotating neutron stars as navigation beacons for travel in deep space throughout the solar system and beyond.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello, and now on to the marine section of the show. We're going to start first with looking at the ice edge. The way it is different today is that we're seeing a decrease in this ice edge because we have a strong southerly flow, and this is continuing to work against the ice as that warmer wind pushes northward. Now, let's take a look at the southeast. For your Saturday, we're looking at a relatively nice day, a little bit stronger wind gusty conditions across the northern and channels down through Juneau. Looking for lighter wind speeds towards the Dixon entrance, and then the outer waters will be between 15 to 20 knots, mainly out of the south direction. So the inner channels will see seas between 3 to 5 feet. The outer waters will be between 7 to 9 feet. Looking at your Sunday, those winds are going to continue to be gusty across the inner channels, but more of an offshore flow for all the locations out of the north and an easterly flow for those offshore locations. Inner channels will be between 3 to 5 feet for the sea heights, and then between 7 to 8 feet across the outer waters. Looking at the northern Gulf waters and around Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound, we're looking at lighter wind speeds between 10 to 15 knots and a northerly direction or more towards the east across the northern and western Gulf locations. We're looking at seas on this day mainly between 2 to 5 feet across the area. As we head into Sunday, looking for a very nice day once again between 10 to 15 knots across the area. Seas on this day again will be between 2 to 5 feet. For the Alaska Peninsula, we're looking at light speeds for your Saturday forecast with a little bit of a directional wind change there, southeasterly for the northern areas of the peninsula becoming more northwesterly. And then the northwesterly flow across the area will switch out of the south direction and begin to pick up in speed for your Sunday, especially across the peninsula. Small craft returns to the area. We'll see sea heights between 4 to 8 feet across the Bering and then between 4 to 7 feet across the Pacific side. Looking at the western Aleutians, that's where the strongest winds are going to be for your Saturday. Storm force system is coming up and is going to be affecting the wind and waves through the end of the weekend. We're looking at sea heights between 15 to 32 feet for your Saturday forecast, and out towards the eastern Aleutians, they're a little bit lighter wind speed, small craft for the most part, or gales, and we'll see seas a little bit lower there between 8 to 12 feet. and then higher as you go towards the central Aleutians. So storm force low will bring some unsettled pattern for much of the Bering waters, but we will come down to about gales for your Sunday. We'll still see that southerly fetch across the area, so the highest seas will be to the north, but across the chain we're looking at between 10 to 20 foot seas continuing all the way up to 25 feet south of the chain, and as you head towards the west, still high seas out there with those max gale winds. For the west coast, looking at lighter speeds, except for the central areas of the Bering out towards the Pribilofs, south direction at 25 knots, so small craft for you. And then as we head into Sunday, those sea heights will be increasing from 5 to 10 feet, a little bit higher with these winds coming up out of the south direction, front pushing towards the coast, so some precipitation will be working into these areas as well. Rain to the south, snow to the north, with sea heights between 12 to 25 feet. The highest seas, of course, out towards the central waters and northern waters there. Now, for the Saturday forecast for the north and west coast, looking at light speeds for you on that day, a little bit gustier winds there for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast at 25 knots. This southerly gust will be picking up on Sunday with the strongest gusts out of the Bering Strait locations, and the Norton Sound. Look for seas down there to increase to 12 feet with a small craft across the northwest coast and across the eastern Beaufort Sea. Now let's go ahead and recap the forecast for the upcoming weekend. We are going to be staying dry across the eastern areas of the state and the southeast. Look for the aurora to be coming out tonight, so hopefully some of you will get a good view. Unfortunately, we do have a front across the west coast with that boundary staying there. Cloud cover and light snow showers, no accumulations really expected overnight. And then a front will be moving into the western Aleutians. That system is going to be making it to the west coast by the end of the weekend. So those dry conditions should stay put for much of the state through the weekend, except for the light snow and rain moving into the west coast as we head into Sunday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.